Hey guys, how are you doing? In this video, I'm going to talk about CSS. This is the first video of my upcoming videos about CSS, so make sure you're subscribed. But before diving into CSS, you should know that to learn and use CSS, you need to know at least the basics of HTML, which if you don't, please watch my HTML video first. You can find the link in the description below. Okay, now that you know HTML or at least the basics of it, you probably know what CSS is. But for the people that don't, CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Imagine you create a button using the button tag in HTML, like what we have here. Let's open this file in Chrome. So as you see, it's just a simple button, and well, it's ugly. So let's make it look good with CSS by creating a CSS file. So style CSS, button, color, deep sky blue, background color, white, border, 1 pixel, solid, and deep sky blue, and font size 2 rem. Then link your CSS file to your HTML file. So in the head element, type link to style CSS. Don't worry about the syntax, I'm going to talk about this stuff in a bit, but for now, let's open this with Chrome again. So see, here is our HTML file with CSS, and this one is our HTML file before linking it to the CSS file. This is why learning CSS is really important if you want to be a successful developer. But note that CSS is actually optional. You can completely ignore it and create your website only using HTML. But as you saw, it's certainly not sufficient to implement your websites. Okay, now let's see how this CSS thing works. Well, there are multiple ways to apply CSS into your HTML code, but one thing that is common between them is you select something from your HTML code and apply a style to it. Like here, we select the button tag by putting its name here, then we gave it a color, a background color, a border, and a font size. So we have a selector, and inside it we target some properties. Then we'll give them a value. You can select an element with its ID, class, or tag name, and use CSS properties to style it. In CSS, we use open and close curly braces to define a block of CSS code. We set a value to a property by using the property name, colon to separate the value and the property, and then we put the value, and after that we use a semicolon to separate properties. And of course we can put comments in our CSS code like this / asterisk. This is a CSS comment. Then close the comment area using again asterisk, but this time backslash. Of course you can have multi-line comments like this. Comments are good for times that you want to clarify something in the code for only the people that can see your code. Maybe you want to explain something in the code to your teammates or your future self. Okay, there are 3 ways to apply your CSS to your HTML code: inline style, internal style, and external style. I know that seems a bit confusing, but actually it is not. Look, inline styling is the easiest way to style an element. You just select an element by adding the style attribute to it. So let's comment this link for now. Then here type style equals color green. As you see here, we select this button and give it a style using the style attribute. This is what we call an inline style. We gave the value of green to the color property using a colon, and we end it using a semicolon, and that's it. Now if I refresh the page in Chrome, as you see, it is green. This is good, right? But the problem is that what if we have multiple buttons that we want to have that style? This way we need to give all of them this inline styling one by one. And man, this is tedious, right? Another problem is, imagine we've done that, we gave all of those buttons this style. Now, what if after a while you or someone in charge, maybe your boss, decided to change that green color to red? That would be terrifying, right? To do that, we need to go to each of those buttons and give them that style one by one. So a better way is using internal styling. Just like the style attribute for inline styling, there's also a style tag that we can use to add internal CSS code to our HTML code. Look, the proper way is to put the style tag in the head element, but it will work if you put it in the body, but that is not recommended, because if you put it in the head, your CSS will be applied before your actual content. So if your users have a really bad internet connection, they won't see your website without CSS. So style, and inside the style tags, you do this. You select an element like button, give it a style like color, red. Now to see our page, go back to the browser and refresh the page. As you see, our text is still green. And that's because the inline styling has a higher priority when we apply our styles. I'm gonna talk about this later in future videos, but for now, let's remove the inline styling. And now if I refresh the page, as you see, it is red, which is what we chose in the head element. Now you kind of fixed the problem, right? This way, if you want to change something later, you can just come here and change, for example, this red to something like blue. But still, if we had multiple HTML files and we wanted to use this style in all those files, it would be a nightmare again. This way, we need to repeat our work over and over again, and we developers do not like repeating, right? We really want to be dry, which stands for do not repeat yourself, which is a software development principle aimed to avoid redundancy. And we developers also like the separation of concerns, or SOC. This is a principle in software development, which means that you need to separate your code into different sections, and in our case is separating the content, which is our HTML code, and our styles, which is our CSS code. This way, if something happens to one of them, we still got the other one, and working on them in a team is much easier this way. So to have all of the stuff that we just said, we need to put our CSS code outside of the HTML code, then link to that CSS file. So let's remove this internal styling. So now I have a CSS file here. I've created it in the first part of the video, but if you don't, just create a file, name it whatever you want. Style is a common name, and put the CSS extension at the end. Now here you can type what I've typed here, and then we need to link this file to our HTML file, because HTML files can't just automatically find their CSS files. So now I'm just gonna uncomment this line. So our link should be in the head element. Then specify the relation between the two files, which the CSS file is a style sheet for this HTML file. And where's that CSS file? It's in the same directory. So just like when we use the anchor tag. Now come back here and refresh the page. Okay, that was it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.